Welcome to our History channel. History too real for the Westerns. Don't forget to click like, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and leave us a comment if you like this story. The source for tonight's episode is My 9 Years Among the Indians by Herman Lehman. Link to purchase is in the description below. This is a first-hand account provided by an adopted Comanche warrior named Herman Lehman. We've done an episode on him previously, so if you'd like to know more about how Herman came to be with the Comanche, the episode to that is linked in the description below. 1878, Texas Hill Country. On a lazy, hot Texas afternoon, a band of Comanche had staked their sprawling camp near a creek that afforded some water and shade. They had been leisurely moving about the territory for a few weeks now, killing and eating what buffalo they could find, and killing a buffalo hunter here and there for fun. Earlier that day, 6 of their young braves had ventured off in search of game. All of a sudden, 3 of them appeared on the horizon. Now, not only were they 3 members short, before they were even able to broach the perimeter of the camp, they began to cry out the terrible news. The missing 3 braves had all been killed, cut down in a surprise attack by a roving band of about 30 Tonkawa warriors. The Tonkawa had long occupied central Texas and had endured many hardships and much violence at the hand of the Comanche, as the Comanche had endured from them. Over the years, disdain had devolved into outright hatred, and atrocities on both sides were numerous and severe by any measure. Comanche warriors, enraged at the murder of their friends and kinsmen, immediately grabbed their weapons and supplies, mounted their horses, and were off in pursuit. And after about 3 hours, following the trail of the Tonkawa, they crested a ridge and came within sight of their camp. The Tonkawas, seemingly under the impression they had fled beyond the reasonable bounds of enemy pursuit, sat around a campfire, waiting for their evening meal to cook. Then, for a fleeting moment, as the Comanche party came within sight of the Tonkawa, and the Tonkawa looked towards the top of the ridge that loomed over their camp and noticed their pursuers, there was a stark, terrifying silence. Then the Comanche war chief gave a piercing war cry, and the band of Comanche swooped down into the ravine in which the Tonkawa were camped. Several Tonkawa were cut down in the camp, and the survivors fled deeper into the ravine. The Comanche now had possession of the camp. They scalped the Tonkawa who had been killed and began to ransack the possessions that had been left. Then one warrior inspected the campfire that was still burning, with the Tonkawa's meal still sizzling. He shrieked out a war cry as he recognized the roasting meat that the Tonkawa had been preparing was a human leg. The Tonkawa practiced ritual cannibalism on all of their enemies, especially the hated Comanche, and this practice of imposed, posthumous indignity ignited a unique ire within the Comanche. Now, killing their enemy alone would not do. The Comanche were determined to exact their pound of proverbial flesh and more. All present mounted again and took off down the ravine in hot pursuit of their quarry, now with their bloodlust unfettered. In the intervening time between their flight and the Comanche's gruesome discovery, the Tonkawa had constructed a defensive position deep in the ravine. From here, as they took on the initial Comanche charge, they managed to lay down a formidable amount of fire and fall several of their attackers. This managed to pause the Comanche onslaught. Then a Tonkawa brave rode out of the ravine towards the Comanche. Raising his shield, he called out to them, challenging any among them to individual combat. One Comanche rode forward and was killed in hand-to-hand combat with the Tonkawa. Another charged forward and met the same fate. The Tonkawa believed eating the flesh of their enemy would imbue them with the desirable characteristics of that said fallen foe. The speculation in the Comanche ranks was that the taste of human flesh had made this Tonkawa particularly bold and powerful. Finally, A third Comanche managed to ride forward and dispatch him. At this point, the natural apprehension towards attacking an entrenched position gave way to collective rage. A war cry went up from the Comanches, who now sensed their prey within reach, and they made a final mad dash charge in which the remaining Tonkawas were either killed or mortally wounded in hand-to-hand combat. By the end of the fight, 8 more Comanche were killed, and 40 to 50 more badly wounded. It had been a costly victory, but now the Comanche would truly exact their retribution. The following is Herman Lehman's personal account of the events that came next. A great many of the dying enemy were gasping for water, but we heeded not their pleadings. We scalped them, amputated their arms, cut off their legs, cut out their tongues, and threw their mangled bodies and limbs upon their own campfire, put on more brushwood, and piled the living, dying, and dead Tonkawas onto the fire. Some of them were able to flinch and work as a worm, and some were able to speak and plead for mercy. We piled them up, put on more wood, and danced around in great glee as we saw the grease and blood run from their bodies, and were delighted to see them swell up and hear the hide pop as it would burst in the fire. When all the Tonkawas had been consumed into flames, the Comanche returned to their camp to find a scene of great sadness and despair. The wives of the slain men wept and moaned loudly, and cut deep gashes into their arms, faces, and bodies. A somber and solemn funeral ritual was undertaken, and it would be 3 months more before the warriors would even attempt to raid again. After all, the rage had settled. It seemed there was only endless amounts of pain and grief to be suffered. Though victory had gone to the Comanches, both sides were greatly impacted. Tonight's story is not to illustrate the particular culpability or competence of either side, but to give you a view into the world that is all too often misunderstood and ultimately underappreciated. There are thousands more tales of intertribal conflict, but for now, those are other stories for other times.